I'm curious if you've ever heard of the butterfly effect. It's an idea offered by meteorologist and mathematician Edward Lorenz as a comment on chaos theory in the 1960s. The story goes that Mr. Lorenz took the data from all of his weather observatories and plugged it into a weather model he had created, and it did a rather good job of predicting the weather. He then took the same data and rounded off the numbers at what for him seemed like an inconsequential space. Think like in the millionth place. He rounded off the numbers, he put them into the model again, and they failed to offer the same predictions. He found that very small changes, even for, say, the flapping of a butterfly's wing, could have huge impacts on the weather system as a whole. This is something I've been thinking about a lot this year, how we impact each other, how our small ripples can cause big waves for us. I certainly do not want to spend the entirety of our holidays speaking about COVID. I want to lose myself in our traditions and wisdom old and new. I want to allow myself a break from the daily in order to focus on the yearly, the once in a lifetime. For we could not have imagined it a year ago, or perhaps we just refused to, but tonight is a moment of return, of recycling, of taking a step back into our tradition in order to move forward towards our shared future. Tonight is the birthday of the world, a moment when all, no matter their creed, can sense a change in the air, a change in the seasons, which signals the continued rotation of our little blue rock through our cosmic neighborhood. That is my goal for these high holy days, to immerse myself, to lose myself in it all, and to find the one. But tonight, as I stand in a room not as full as I wish, a room that feels somewhat empty, with many of you joining us from the safety of your homes, COVID and masks keeping us distant from each other, I can't help but feel the pain of this year. As I stand here, and I admit even with a little bit of joy, it is clear to me things are different this year. That progress has been made. I am here, more than 1 million of you are here. Our sanctuary is filled again with holy songs. Yet the cloud of this disease still looms over us. It has made each one of us into scientists, investigative reporters, healthcare proxies, and much more, all by force. We have not been asked if we wanted to take on the task of reading through case numbers and assessing risk for each decision in our lives, big and small. This has all been foisted upon us, and it is breaking some of us. This was not part of our plan A, nor B, C, nor D. If you're like me, it is incredibly difficult to throw away your best laid plans, but survival has demanded it, and so, as we have done many times in our Jewish history, our little temple in the woods, along with synagogues all over the world, did exactly that. We changed everything, approached it all with fresh eyes and a commitment to do what it takes to find our way through together. In the process, we had powerful new experiences. We also made mistakes. We learned, we tweaked, we made changes. Together we grew and allowed ourselves, even during a time of COVID, to blossom into something beautiful. Now here on the eve of our high holy days, it feels important that we take a moment to acknowledge what we, those who have survived, when so many others have not, what lesson are we tasked with carrying forward from this? What spiritual muscle has been called upon and strengthened during this time? Even if we didn't know it, even if we didn't choose it, what has this experience forced upon our generation as the wisdom that we must now share forward as our Torah, as our gift to those who are yet to be? As I read the news this year, story after story of both the best and worst of ourselves, moments of panic and hoarding, moments of selfless giving and caretaking, I kept seeing kavod, respect, or a lack of it, everywhere I looked. In this year of COVID, we've all flexed our Kavod muscles. We masked and stayed socially distant. We checked in on friends, family, and neighbors. We offered the little that we could, even when it wasn't clear what the next days, weeks, or even months would bring. It was weighty, but we constantly thought not just of ourselves, but of our ripples throughout society. What could exposure mean for us, for our loved ones, or for those we barely know, but who were connected to us through an almost imperceptible social web, thin as gossamer and as serious as life and death? Kavod, respect, is connected to the Hebrew word for heaven, kaved. All of us, tired at the end of this year, know this, to have offered each other kavod, respect, during a time of such pain, such instability, has been kaved. It has been heavy and hard. We didn't ask for this. It was forced upon us, like the slavery of our ancestors in Egypt. Yet we have gained strength from this, like our ancestors did in that land of narrowness. There they learned the trades that would allow them as free people to build the tabernacle, to build a home in the Holy Land, to build our sacred temple. We too look forward from this moment to a moment of freedom. And like our ancestors, approach that moment with tools born out of our struggles. Kavod, respect, thinking of all the ripples has been heavy, has been hard, but is now a part of us, an instinct, a skill with which we may build a new holy world. Yet to be honest, I am worried. As I look out into a congregation of skilled kavodics, artisans experiencing the ways and applications of kavod, of respect, I am worried that we are at risk of losing that respect, that kindness that marked the early days of the pandemic. I'm worried that when we start regularly going back to restaurants and to the gyms, when we start to return to normalcy, may good, merciful God please come soon in our days, that we will abandon our commitment to kavod, that we will grow blind to the ripples we make as we walk through the stream of life and care once again mainly for ourselves and our own desires. There's a favorite story of mine, a story of the Chafetz Chaim, who's a rabbi from the late 19th, early 20th century, who is known as the Desire of Life. The Chafetz Chaim, once we were told, went to a very special inn, an inn that was known for having amazing kosher food. He went to go have a special meal, and he took his chavruta with him. When they got to the inn, and it was two such illustrious rabbis who had sat down for a meal, the innkeeper decided to be their waiter for the night. No expense was spared. The innkeeper gave them the most amazing of 5-course meals. The innkeeper kept checking in, making sure everything was okay. The innkeeper offered these two great rabbis a tremendous amount of kavod, a tremendous amount of respect. At the end of the meal, the innkeeper comes up to the two rabbis and says, "How was everything? I trust that it was all good." The Chafetz Chaim, our rabbi, says, "It was amazing, thank you. What an amazing meal, what a great chef. Every piece, every bite was delicious." This chavruta turns to the innkeeper and says, "It really was such an amazing meal, but the soup could have used a little bit more salt." The innkeeper just kind of bows out, "Thank you, I'm so sorry," and runs off towards the kitchen. The Chafetz Chaim turns to his chavruta and says, "I can't believe you did this. My entire life I've tried to avoid lashon hara, I've tried to avoid malicious speech, and here you offer lashon hara, you offer malicious speech right in front of me." This chavruta said, "What do you mean? What did I do here? I just said something about the salt." The Chafetz Chaim said, "You've committed lashon hara, and you've done it in 6 ways. You said it, you caused others to hear it, me and the innkeeper. You caused the innkeeper to repeat it as he's now going to go into the kitchen to tell the cook that the soup was missing a little bit of salt. You caused the innkeeper to become angry at the cook. How could she have forgotten to put a little bit of extra salt in the meal of these two illustrious rabbis? You've caused the cook to lie, to try to save face, to claim, of course, there was salt in the soup. cause pain and fear, as the cook will be fired. The Chavruta of the Chafetz Chaim said, this is exaggeration. There's no way this is what's going on. You're making a big deal of nothing. So they walked down the hall. They looked through the window into the kitchen. And the scene was unfolding just as the Chafetz Chaim had said. The innkeeper was in there berating the cook, who was begging, saying there was coarse with salt. I'm so sorry. The innkeeper about to fire her. Send her home. Allow her children to starve. Of course, seeing the scene playing out, the Chafetz Chaim's Chavruta burst into the door of the kitchen and said, please, 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 do not fire this cook. This meal was an amazing meal. Everything tasted so good. So there wasn't enough. That's no big deal. I promise, every time I come through town, I will come stay at your inn. I will eat your food. Please, just promise me you won't fire this woman. The innkeeper agrees. The Chafetz Chaim and his Chavruta, they leave. As they start out on their journey back home, as they get out onto the road, the Chavruta turns to the Chafetz Chaim and says, who would have thought that for a little bit of salt, there was the danger of a child going hungry, his mother out of a job? The Chafetz Chaim turned back to his Chavruta and said, it would have been better had you just added a little salt to yourself. How many of us can think of times when others have slighted us in this way? Where a small comment after we had worked so hard, strived to offer our all, where a seemingly minor comment cut us so deep. How many of us realize the numerous times throughout this year, throughout our lives, where we have done exactly this to others? Where we allowed ourselves to think of and comment on the little bit we were lacking, despite our friends' efforts to provide for everything. It may not be a matter of livelihood and sustenance each time, but are we ready to understand just how impactful our little ripples can be? That what for us started as no more than the wind from a butterfly's wings is a tsunami for our fellow. Are we ready to see and really take responsibility for our ripples? Out of fear this year, we became so aware of our ripples, how a little action or inaction on our part could lead to so much good or so much pain for others. Our fear, our pain, our distance from others has built this capacity for Kavod, the capacity to perceive the ripples. I want to ask you, as we enter into a new year together, as our cycle returns us and washes us in the spiritual waters of holiness, and we pray for a year of even more change, a year of health, a year of blessings and joy, that we don't turn our eyes from the ripples of our actions, that we continue to think of and put others at the center of our thoughts. And like in our story, I'm not just talking about the big moments, not just the events where it is so clear that we must consider others, watching out for our ripples. I'm asking you to be careful to think of others even in the small interactions of quotidian life, even when you think you are just commenting on some inconsequential salt. This won't be easy, for we are all so very tired. Our fires are so dim. But we must pay attention to the ripples. We must be careful in matters of kavod, careful with our words, thoughtful and not flippant with our actions, filled with love and desire for blessings for all. If we can taste the salt missing from our world and feel not the lack, but focus on the love present in that soup, present in everything that we have been given, then we have done half the work. If we can do that and then think to add the salt ourselves, that is truly kavod. And with that, the world might just be a tastier and a more perfect place. I say to you, Shana Tova, a good year. Shana Tova, repeat well, review well. Shana Tova, change well, make a good difference. And Shana Tova, sleep well. Shana Tova.